We're live.
Yay! Happy Wednesday.
Welcome to Women Investor Wednesdays. I'm so happy you're here. You and I committed to doing this like 4 months ago.
We did. In fact, we did.
Right?
I'd like to suggest that because we have a super busy calendar and it's all about real estate and investment. However, if the truth is that I have a standing 7:00 rehearsal every Wednesday night until the music season is over. And this is the first Wednesday that I'm not at rehearsal. So what better place to be than with you?
Well, and I'm grateful that you are here because, our friends Katrina and Karina Garcia,
Yes,
who we love, right, said, you've got to get Barbara on Women Investor Wednesday. I go, I know, I'm trying. So, all right. So for our audience who very funnily, this is very funny. I don't know if funnily is a word, but very funny. About 2 months ago, I saw Karina and Katrina about 2 weeks after they were on the Women Investor Wednesday show. And they said, you're not going to believe what happened. I said, what? And she said, the day after the show, we got like 7 phone calls from people who watched the show. And I said, oh, how nice. And she goes, the funny thing is they were all men. I'm like, men? And they said, yes, 2 of them were brokers and they brought us deals. Cause we shared on the show what we're looking for. We're going to look at a deal this week.
Oh, I bet I know what deal that was.
Exactly. So how fun. So thank you, men, for watching Women Investor Wednesdays. We're happy that you're here. And if you have deals to bring Barbara or I, please do so. But for the women in the audience and also the men, share with everyone a little bit about yourself before we get into the whole investing thing, just like how long you've been in the business, what do you do, what asset class, you're from Miami, Coral Gables, but fill them in.
Yeah, actually, I grew up on Long Island and then spent some time in North Carolina. Well, my husband went back to business school, and that's where my first exposure to commercial real estate happened. I ended up being lucky enough to work with a family office that had legacy land holdings, and one of the sons had taken on the responsibility for creating value in those assets, and so he had developed what we now call flex space. And I was lucky enough to work for him and be employee number 1, which was a lot of fun because it was a learning curve for everybody. And it was a great time in the market in the mid 80s. And it was a great introduction because it was an exposure to that arc of investment that an investor has, holding the land and land banking it. And then finally, when the market moves enough to create the value that you foresaw in that asset, make it happen. So it was really fun to be part of that. We were transferred to South Florida, and I got an opportunity to work with the Brandon family when I came to Miami, and Ed and Steve and Jeff, and I was sitting in the trailer at the Colonial Palms Plaza back in the day. And I'm happy to say there's still a couple tenants from that leasing period that are in that shopping center. But that was a great training ground, and I am grateful to them for the time they spent with me. I took some time off and for raising kids, and then I ended up deciding I wanted to get back into commercial brokerage rather than being in-house on a development team or in a family office, that kind of a setting. And I didn't want to go with a big national firm because I wasn't sure how my balance with motherhood and my goals for working would mesh. And so I knocked on Bill Kerdike's door, and we'd been friends for some time, and I told him I was looking to make some trouble for him. And he said, what do you mean trouble? I said, good trouble, commercial real estate kind of trouble. He's like, bring it on. So that's how I came to focus in the Gables, because for me, with the goals that I had for both personal and professional, segmenting my geography and working in diverse property types was the way I chose to balance, rather than choosing one property type and being broad in the geography in which I chose to focus.
So you decided to focus on a geography versus asset class.
That's correct. That's correct.
How old were your kids when you knocked on Kerdike's door?
It was a time when they were I remember this so clearly. James, our younger son, had just turned 3, and he was in a class from like 9 to 1. And I figured, okay, I have a block of time. I'd been playing my cello a whole lot and I love that. But I also am a person who understands and values the long-term multiplier effect of investment, and a dollar today can be worth $10, $100 tomorrow. And I decided that I wanted to get back into commercial real estate. It was a passion I had prior to having kids, and I thought I could find a way to blend it. And so
And
that's why I put my big toe in it. Yeah.
And when you went back and you said, I want to do brokerage and I'm going to focus on this geography, but do different asset classes, were you already thinking ahead to, and I'm going to invest?
That's a great question. I don't think that at that time, I did not think about it in that way. But what I can say is that I guess I was about 19 when I went back with brokerage. And by the early 2000s, I felt like I had a pretty deep understanding of the market. And I had some clients who came to me. I'm not even sure how we got connected looking back, but what they were looking to find was something that was not actively being marketed. They were describing a future development opportunity that they wanted. They didn't want something too big. They didn't want something too small. And as we were talking one day and we had looked at different opportunities, I said to them, why don't we just go for a walk? And if you see something that you like, let me know. And so we walked around the Gables and we walked down one street and they said, we like things like that. And they pointed to a building. I'm like, let's see what we can do. And so it was, a classic cold call situation. It turned out that
doesn't work, Barbara, right? Cold calling.
So fast forward, it turned out that the owner was open to selling their asset. And then, when you're young, you ask, sometimes you're so curious, you just start asking more questions. And so I was talking to the owner or the seller at that point one time, and I said, he's talking about other properties he owned. I said, is there something else that you own that you would like to sell? And he said, yes, I have this and this and this and this and this. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, well, let me get back to you on that because I might know somebody who would be interested. And I sat down with my clients and I said, the seller has this and this and this and this. Would you be interested in acquiring those? And they said, no, we only want that. And I said, okay, great. And so when I called him back, I said, I know you've got these 4 things, but I really like this one thing over here. And I'd like to make you an offer. He said, okay, send it in.
And that was your first?
That was my first direct investment, and with partners in, but it came after I had been limited in another property, a retail asset, which came about through very just general networking with a colleague in the industry, still in the industry. And we were talking about, the market and what's new and what's this and what are you buying and what do you think and what do you like? And he had mentioned, I'm looking for some equity for this asset and I would be looking for a limited partner. And my husband and I talked about it together. And so we made an investment in that. It turns out that I'm a better general partner and asset manager than a limited because.
Why is that? You like control.
Well, I do have other investments through private equity, through one of my other investment vehicles. I should say we, but in that particular first instance, the managing partner, it was a long-term play, a long-term buy and hold. That's what enticed and inspired me to be interested in it and then sit down with my husband and crunch numbers and make the investment. And then the general partners put it back on the market pretty quickly. And I thought, all right, well, let's see what happens. Eventually, they came to the LPs and they sent out an email to everybody saying, hey, we got this incredible offer, never to be duplicated again, such a return on our investment, and we're going to close a year and a day to the date that we originally acquired the property. And I read the email like 3 times, and I was young. And that thing that they say you should never do, fire off an email and not put it in draft first? Well, I did a reply all, which I was shocked that it worked. And I said, hey, this isn't the plan. What are we doing this for? And I got a phone call back in 30 seconds. And so I understood that if I'm going to interact that way, it's probably better for me to be better understand the limited role, which I am a much better limited partner now. I have than I was then, but and to this day, it was a wonderful investment, not to be duplicated. They were all right. It was the correct thing to do at the time. I still drive by that asset and lovingly blow it a kiss because it was so good. And I think maybe it'll come around again and be good again. But, the things you learn, right? This is how you learn.
Well, and a lot of times what I tell people all the time when they call me and say, well, how do I get involved? How do I get started? And I said, be an LP first. And what I was number 11 employee at Terra Nova. When I left, we had 135, I think, but I had the grateful position to be an LP 7 times there. And because I eventually became the president of the company and had to write the partnership letters and had to get those calls from the LPs, I learned how to be an LP because I knew what I did not want. The LP is the smallest LP, Natasha, you and Natasha Falcone need to meet because she's in the Gables. I invest with her and she buys multifamily in Little Havana and in Hialeah. But she has a Instagram live where she talks to women that LPs and GPs and sponsors. And we were talking, and she had a call the other day, and they were talking about how it's so funny how the smallest GP has the loudest voice.
The smallest LP.
LP.
Yeah.
The smallest LP, meaning, there's 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 500,000, and then the 25,000 person. And that was my experience in the LPs I was in.
I think that that's probably a universal fact. In that particular instance I related, I was not the smallest LP, but I was probably the newest one. Or when the invitation to be an LP came, it was a broadening of the circle. So for me, it was the first time I was putting my toe in. So I was paying very close attention because I was on a really steep learning curve. I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand. Right. But I also think in that instance, the GP learned as well to send emails that were that you couldn't reply all on. So
exactly.
So,
but, and good for you. I'm happy that you were vocal, right? I think it's important to ask questions. So what I wanted to say, so you said, I was a GP. I think I was an LP. I think I'll be a better GP. But now later on, so for me, now I'm really enjoying being an LP again. So I started as an LP, then I was a GP a bunch. And now with Natasha, I don't know anything about multifamily. I love saying I give a check and get a check. I give a check and get a check, and I don't have to do any work. So right. I'm at the age of 63. I'm really enjoying, even though I'm still a GP in 4 deals right now, and I'm about to do a $2 million renovation on a shopping center. So I'll be all in that. It's great to diversify and be an LP.
I would echo that same thing. We are similar ages, and I do like being the managing partner of an asset. I enjoy the asset management of it, but I'm not building a huge asset management intensive firm here. I did it and I asked to be those roles in the assets I own. I invited partners in, so I automatically had that role. And then when a partner invited me into something else, I said, look, I'll come in, but I want to come in as the asset manager. So all of that was an education, and all of those experiences led up to the fact that enabled me to be more comfortable being an LP with people that I trust and firms that I trust. And in addition to asset classes, to your point, that I know very little about.
So very interesting. So you're saying that someone brings you a deal, asks you to be an LP, you say, yes, I'm interested in being an LP, but I want a role as asset manager?
I did say that, yes. And they were okay with that.
Tell me more.
I know, we were there invested in the original deal that I got from this other group. And I had already demonstrated skill, care, and diligence, and was doing a pretty good job. And
did they not have someone on their team that could fill the role?
for sure. They are active investors themselves, but it was of a benefit to all of us to have these other deals together. And it's a further diversification for all of us, for them too. They have deals, we're in deals that I manage. I am not in any deals that they manage, not because I don't want to, but because it's the way we invest, just like you and Natasha. You have the framework for how you invest together, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time there's a new opportunity.
So have you always invested with this core group?
No, we have not added to the portfolio as a group. We have added to our personal portfolios in other ways. This particular partner prefers to be a general, and so maybe that's why we're not investing more. I'm happy with the general partner role and the assets that I have as a principal, and chose to diversify further into select limited partnership roles in different asset classes. So in terms of diversification of investment in commercial real estate, because of the run room, of being 63, it would take a really special property for me to be interested in adding it to my personal portfolio, or to find something that would inspire me and be interesting enough to, bring creativity and reposition. I did miss out on a couple things, but some good friends of mine were able to get them, and they turned out to be great investments for them. So I'm happy for them. But I didn't have the right, I guess, pieces of the puzzle together at the time. One of my partners wasn't as willing and as robust about making an investment. This is the other thing that I learned. Yes, I like the partners that I invest with, but sometimes if one of those partners is critical and they choose not to be, they don't like the deal for whatever reason, but you still believe in the deal, you shouldn't necessarily walk from the deal because your favorite partner walked out. Passed on the opportunity is probably the correct way to say it. And this is something that I learned early in my career. It was a multifamily opportunity. It was interesting to me. It was interesting to a group of people we were looking at investments with. I would say there's 3 of us. I was going to play the broker role. So there was a commission for me. I could have just flipped that right back into the investment. A bunch of redone 1-1s in a fabulous location before units were being converted to condo. So if I look in the rearview mirror, which you never should do, but I just share it here from an experiential standpoint, the play for me would have been replace that one partner who lost interest in it, continue to make the investment. And then as time went on and people were looking to convert multifamily units, it was only 38 units. It would have been easy to convert to condo. And then you would have had a really interesting return on investments. Of course, with all the stress that entails, who knows where I'd be today. So you can't ever, that's why you never look in the rearview mirror. That's why it's this tiny mirror in your car, all those things. So
yeah,
I share that concept.
I would tell you there's 7 deals that I don't ever think about.
Mm-hmm.
That believed in, and the male money partner did not believe in. And because they weren't co-signing on my idea,
Mm-hmm.
I believed that they were richer and more experienced than I was. And it was about a 3-year period of time. And all 7 of those today in South Florida were developed.
Yeah.
And, I drive by them and try not to look. I can't throw them kisses. I cannot throw those. But what it did, it finally kicked me in the butt enough after the 7th one to say, okay, this is justification that you know what you're doing and you don't need anyone else to co-sign for this. Meaning, if they don't want to put money in, go find the money elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned that I'm a good picker. And now when I find something, I go all in. I have a group. You want in, you don't want in. I'm going to find, the money's not really ever the problem. The problem is finding the deals.
Right. I would agree.
So when you do, in the past, when you've been the GP and you've brought in other partners, have you done the whole promote pref thing, or how, there are people now, I don't know about you. I have never done this. There are people now buying projects with like 8 GPs and each one has a role. And like I was on a webinar once looking at a deal, it's like an apartment building and a retail and a this, that, and I got on the webinar and I'm like, who are all those people? And I like was, and then the fees. And I was like, okay, this isn't for me.
Yeah, I'm a really simple, straightforward person. And technically, when you make an investment, if you find the deal, there should be a promote that you get. And that's the way it works in the big leagues, as you will, or maybe institutional levels. That's not who I am. I am a club deal person at this stage. I started out that way because it just felt right. And investing in that way, I think, enabled me to get the invite to the next deal, because
tell the audience what you mean by club deal.
There's no promote on it, and everybody's par for what their percentages are, whether you're 50, 40, 25, and it's just a straight up percentage deal. And so, okay, so there are, you brought up the idea of fees. For sure, the fee structure is how a lot of property investments are, how they sustain, right? They get the assets, and sometimes they have the assets just to have the fees and get the money and whatnot. But I do get paid a management fee. It doesn't equate to the amount of time and that it's on my mind. I mean, if when it rains like the Dickens, what am I actually thinking about? I'm not thinking about, oh, my garden's going to look great. No, I'm thinking about, please let there not be a roof leak.
Exactly.
And, that's why, to our earlier discussion point at 63, I think more about, these limited opportunities are very good to me as well. So.
Yeah. Okay. So you find a deal, it's too big for you and your husband to do by yourself. So you go to 5 people and you bring them in. Yeah. And if you put in 25, let's say you get a loan for 50%, there's 50% left. You put in 20 and then you have, someone else takes the other piece, the other 30. It's pari passu, 20 and 30, and all you do is get a management fee.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's with the group.
You're doing a lot of work and not getting a bump at the end. For me,
it's okay. I did it as a learning experience. And once you cut your deal, this is another point. Once you cut your deal, you can't go backwards on it.
So, oh my God. I cut 3 deals and the pref was, I remember teaching a class and having it up on the screen. And as I'm teaching the class saying, I would never do this deal again. But when I was doing the 3 deals, I didn't know what I was doing. And it was some ridiculous, it was like the pref was 15. I didn't know what I was doing. But in the end, we just literally sold all 3 recently. And we all made a great amount of money, but I don't think I got into my promote on 2 of them, but that's okay. I had money in the deal. So I have never in my career, and I've been in probably at this point, 30 deals. I've never not put money in a deal. This whole OPM thing, I don't know how that works. Cause if I want to go raise money, I want to be able to say, this is the price. This is what we're going to do for a loan. This is how much I'm putting in. Do you want to put money in? And I don't know how that works when someone says, I'm not putting in any money. You give me all your money and I'm going to get a percentage. Yeah, but it happens all the time.
It happens all the time. That is a classic paradigm for investing.
Not for me though.
No, the world is round, and I have learned a whole lot about investing in management and asset management. I enjoy it. And honestly, I think it got me the invitation to the next deal, which I'm thrilled with. So I have absolutely nothing to complain about. It doesn't work for everybody, but for me, it worked out well.
How many deals are you a GP or a sponsor today in, and how many LP deals?
I have 2 GP deals, single tenant, triple net assets, and then LP, gosh, I don't know, half a dozen, something. I don't know. I don't count them. I just, they're of an asset class that I don't know much about. And I have complete trust and faith in the group. And as does my husband, we have a vehicle we do that investment with together. So it's always a shared analysis, and we've been very happy with it. And
is he in real estate too, or no?
My husband is in real estate. His career was at Bank of America, and he did all of the lending on the big developments in downtown Miami. or a
Awesome.
commercial real estate lender. Yeah, and he's reinvented himself at this stage. So it's fun. He has more time. I've always trying to come on to the dark side, It's
And
much
you're
more
still
fun.
brokering, right?
Yeah. I have some long-term legacy clients that have ongoing needs, and I feel fortunate that we still have those relationships, and it's beneficial for both of us and both sides of both them, family offices, some of them, and I enjoy that interaction.
So if a great deal fell in your lap tomorrow, but you had to be the GP, what would you do?
I would go to the core group that we like to invest with and see what they think. And, it has to check a lot of boxes these days because at this point in the arc of my career, the runway for recovery from a mistake is shorter.
Right.
And so I'm a lot pickier.
Are you pickier with LPs too? So I bet on the jockey. So like I have LPs with multifamily, industrial in Tampa, hospitality, like hotel with a minority female that I just love the whole mission. Get minority females to buy hotels instead of work in them. And so I'm all over the place, but I'm always betting on, like I look at them and I have a guy that's done a fund to fund urgent care franchise construction. But I'm betting on the jockey in all of those instances. It's not, I look at the OM and I look at the projections, but it's like, do I trust them? Are they transparent? Have they had a good success journey? And then
it's the same way you would pick a client to work with. You have to trust them. To your point, you have to know that, is this a person I want to have to talk to every day?
Yeah.
Is this a person that's going to pick up the phone when I have a question? Are they going to return my call? I'm not a needy person, but I want to be able to have a freedom of communication and not be ghosted, it's really simple. It's not complicated. These are things we learned in the sandbox. Who do you want to have over for a play date?
Yeah. All right. So it's 7:33. We went over a little. So thank you so much. But I have one question.
Thank you for inviting me.
You know why I did this? Did I tell you? I'm sure I told you on the phone that I found out a few years ago that of all of the investors in commercial real estate, only 3% are women.
Crazy.
And of the 3%, half of those are spouses who sign on guarantees that are not really investors, right? Or inherited. And so that means that I'm part of 1.5%, which is just deplorable. So I started the conference because I started researching and saying to women, why aren't you investing? And, lots of things. I'm afraid it's too complicated. It's too risky. And then when I would delve further, well, do you invest at all? Yes. Well, where? In the stock market? Oh, well, that's not too complicated, risky, or, those things. Yeah. And a lot of us that I was interviewing and asking and redoing my research with were in the business like we are. This is like free insider trading here, right? So what it came down to after I kept delving in and going deeper and deeper, women said, I don't know any other women that do it. And I went, oh, and like what you had said at the beginning of this interview, you said, I was talking to a friend and I said, well, what are you investing in? So women don't have those conversations. Women do not stand around at a golf course and say, so what are you investing in? Women don't like to talk about money, which I'm trying to fix and change that too. But they don't talk about, hey, did you invest in any properties recently? So when they say, well, I don't know any other women doing it, I said, okay, well, that's something I can help with. And I started putting together the conference, which in March, it'll be our 5th. But then I realized I can't reach as many women as I want to reach at a conference with 200 women. So that's when I started saying, okay, let's do this Women Investor Wednesday series where I have wonderful women investors on stage here on this platform to share their stories so that the more women I can get it out to on social platforms, they will be at home or in their office or wherever they're watching this saying, okay, if all these women can do it, I can do it too.
It's a great mission, Beth. You're chipping away at it a day at a time, and thank you for doing that, because I know it opens doors, and it helps maybe give a gentle nudge to someone who's thinking, well, can I do this? And, for sure, sometimes you just need to see that somebody else did it.
Right. If they can do it, so can I, So what advice? So for the women that are watching that are saying, yes, she's right. They're right. I can do it. What's your advice to them?
Well, it's very general advice, and I'll give you credit for some of it, the framework for it. But a while ago, I was looking at something that you had sent out, and I clicked on your podcast, and you had spoken about having seen a mentor early in your career that suggested to everybody in the audience, write down 100 things you want to do in your life. And you were young, and so you shared that the first 10 things that you had as goals for your life, I guess maybe it was a 20 something, 30 something, the first 10 ideas came down out of your mind super fast. The next 10 or 15 maybe caused you to think a little further. By the time you got to 50, it was like, oh, how do I get to 51? So you started thinking, and you got to 101. And you shared with the audience at the time that some of them were just crazy ideas, just dreaming ideas, complete dreams. How wonderful if. And the fact that you've actually done some of those what ifs, what is the dream, you've actually executed against that list in a demonstrable and impressive way. So my point is that if you're listening to this podcast, I'm thinking you've got some things on your, I call it maybe a to-do list, maybe it's one or two things. I would say expand that list. And if one of the things is investing in commercial real estate, what is it that's keeping you from doing it? Is it learning more? Is it listening more? Is it reading more? Is it having a skill that you don't have yet? Put those things on your list too. Get good at them, and then just put your big toe in, maybe as an LP first, some other way, maybe be an asset manager for something, or second or backup for an asset manager. So you can build that side of your skill set. So you have your sphere of influence when there is a leak in the roof. You're not like, okay, who do I call now? Having a toolbox to work with makes investing a lot easier. You find the property, you know who you can call to do the inspections. You've got that trust with your sphere of influence already. And I call it sort of loosely the board of directors of your life, right? The people that you reach out to for counsel that you can trust. So I encourage everybody to think about those concepts and see how they fit in their life. And the most important thing of all of that is to just keep moving, keep learning, be curious. That's how you piece it together.
I love that advice. I love my 101. And every time I scratch one off, about once a year, I go back and go, I need to add some, but it's really hard. It's hard to keep adding.
It's hard to keep at it, but it's without the list, the ideas are just floating up here, and you don't have a framework to sort of subconsciously work towards them.
Exactly. Barbara, it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I'm supportive of your mission, and I encourage everybody to get to their to-do list.
And try, put their big toe in. And I'm going to connect you and Natasha, because you guys need to meet. You both live yep, that's going to happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.